I'm Elaine Viets. Jack French is a retired FBI agent, so he's used to secrecy. But Jack never encountered anything like the cloak-and-dagger operation for the hit show House of Cards. Jack was sworn to secrecy when he had a part in the Netflix hit. Today, he can finally talk about his role in House of Cards on the Dead End Job Show. I'm Elaine Viets, and today we're talking to actor Jack French, who's in the Netflix hit House of Cards on the Dead End Job Show. For listeners not familiar with this Netflix hit, House of Cards is set in Washington, D.C. A ruthless politician, Frank Underwood, was promised the post of Secretary of State. When the president denied him that coveted post, Frank got revenge, pretending to be everyone's friend while destroying them. Underwood's wife, Claire, is his match in viciousness. We won't go into the plot for Season 2 for those who haven't seen it yet, but House of Cards is a story of murder, adultery, and betrayal. Jack, when I contacted you for this interview back in January, you refused to talk to me. Why?
Well, because we were literally sworn to secrecy on the set. All the actors, all the backset people actually had to sign a written formal agreement that they would not discuss anything about the plot or any of the episodes until they were finally released.
And it debuted Valentine's Day weekend. What part do you play in House of Cards?
Well, I play the part of the Secretary of Interior, and there are 3 episodes in which the entire cabinet is present. So I'm in 3 episodes in this season.
Do you say anything? What do you do as Secretary of the Interior?
Mostly look important and concerned. For every role in House of Cards, they audition at least 10 people, and of course only one gets the role. Last season, I auditioned for the Chief Justice of the United States, which would have involved giving the oath of office. I didn't get that role. And this year, I auditioned for the Secretary of Treasury, and I did not get the role. That one had lines, but I was selected as one of the other cabinet officials to be in all the scenes involving the full cabinet.
Now, if you don't have a speaking part, how do you get directions from the director?
Well, it's a little tougher on House of Cards. On most TV shows, as well as most movies, all the people in a scene are given a look at what we call the sides, which is a very small version of the script, so you can hide it in your pocket, and the actors use that to refresh their lines between takes. On House of Cards, they wouldn't even pass those out. We didn't have any idea what the scene was about. All of us on the cabinet just received general instructions as to, in this scene you look concerned, in this scene you look a little worried, in this scene you look a little relieved, and that was about it.
Did you wear anything special?
Oh, yes. Everybody on there has to go. There's a formal process which is handled by the wardrobe department. In the wardrobe department, you actually have to come in 2 days before your scene, and they will completely outfit you in your clothes, if they're acceptable, and they almost never are, or what they've got in their vast wardrobe collection. And they select everything. For a man, that would be a suit and tie and shirt, and even the shoes and the belt are picked out by wardrobe. And then those are set aside for you under your number in the scene, and then they, wardrobe, bring that bag to you on the day of the shooting, and then you go off and change into that wardrobe.
Now, you've had a number of acting gigs, so why is House of Cards different?
Well, first of all, when they contact you for the audition, they will send you the sheet or sheets of dialogue. And you're required to bring that into the audition and turn it back over to them and sign a waiver that you did not show that to anybody else while you had it, and it's the only copy you had. When you get to the set itself, and all of the interior scenes are shot in a closed set in a large warehouse in Joplin, Maryland. And to even access the grounds, you have to be on the list what the security officer has at the main gate, which is locked. You have to show them your driver's license to prove who you are. And then you're allowed to enter the overall enclosure before getting to the set. And then once you get to the set, they confiscate your cell phone or any recording devices you would have, so you're not allowed to bring those to where they're actually shooting. And again, you're cautioned about this waiver you signed that you won't tell anybody about what you've learned on that set until after it's released, which this year was Valentine's Day.
Now, when you signed the agreement, you were obviously you were sworn to secrecy. Did you have to promise anything else?
That was it. That you're not allowed to tell anyone what happened in your episode or anything you learned about the plot, etc. And that was not just for the people like me at the bottom. The people at the top respected that thoroughly. Bo Williamson, who's the executive producer that created this show, was interviewed in depth 4 days before season 2 was released, and he told them absolutely nothing. He said, I'm not going to talk about anything that happens in it, and I won't even discuss what's in the trailer.
Well, I saw an interview with Kevin Spacey and Robin, who plays his wife.
Yes.
And they were joking that it was all about cupcakes. This was the day before. They would say nothing. Did you get to meet any of the stars? Did you meet Robin White? Did you get to talk to Kevin Spacey?
Well, within the restrictions set out by SAG and AFTRA, as probably not too many of your listeners know, even if you have a part in a scene that involves lines and you have an interchange with the stars, you're not allowed to speak to them except in the actual performance of your lines. If they speak to you, you may respond, but you're not allowed to initiate a conversation with any of them. And a failure to do that, you could lose the part and be barred from the set. The idea is that the stars have got so much riding on this in terms of their responsibilities and their impact that they can't be engaged in chit-chat between takes with other people. So while I had a scene, in fact, one of my scenes starts off with Kevin Spacey with his hands on my shoulders, standing behind me in the room filled with the cabinet members. But so my only interaction with him was in the actual scenes that were being shot. Robin Wright, however, in addition to being the co-lead in this show, is also directing some of the episodes. And she directed one of the episodes I was in, and she's excellent.
I had no idea. Now, the House of Card cabinet meetings are mostly a battle of wills between the House Majority Whip, Francis Underwood, which is Kevin Spacey, and the President. So how was that handled in this season in front of the cameras? Did you get to watch them in a stare-down?
Sometimes, but not often. In other words, the general action on this has been shot in such a way that you start with the full cabinet around, and they have the cameras that'll pan around so you can see everybody's there. And once we get to the stare downs, which is Spacey against the table from Michael Gill, then the rest of the cabinet is excused, and the cameras are just focusing on those two. And, of course, the viewer in seeing this doesn't realize that all the other actors have left. It's just those two guys in the room. And then when the camera pans back, all of the cabinet people, the actors playing them, are back in their places.
Now, there are a lot of charts and maps and graphs in the cabinet room. Did you get to see them? Did they give you a clue as to what was going on?
No, and you would think that they would, but like most scenes that are filmed both for movies and TV, those are all put in later in post-production. So in one cabinet scene where the admiral is up there discussing a complex operation on this totally blank green wall, you don't really have any idea what he's talking about. But of course, once the scene goes through post-production, they'll put the complete chart in there with all the islands and all the ship movements, etc., which the viewers will ultimately see.
House of Cards recently made the front page of the Washington Post. Why was that?
Yes, it did. I'm looking at it right here. It says, Chinese leaders lap up fictional intrigue of House of Cards. And it goes on to say that House of Cards is the most popular TV show in China. Chinese viewers can't get enough of Frank Underwood, the scheming U.S. congressman in the Netflix drama House of Cards.
Now, you are in some ways a Washington insider since you were with the FBI for many years and you live in the area. How accurate do you think House of Cards is as far as depicting life in Washington?
Wow. It's obviously heavily dramatized, but the Washington insiders have adopted opposing views on this. President Obama, for example, has praised the show and said he'd never misses it, and the Washington Post went around last week and interviewed 7 or 8 congressmen, and all of them denied ever seeing the show and wasn't even sure what it was all about.
Liars.
Well, I'll give you a good example of the popularity of this show, though. Holly Twyford is an actress that I've known for about 20 years. We started out together doing Source murder mysteries, and she was a kid right out of college and got hired for one of our murder mysteries because we needed a fire eater. She put herself through college working in a carnival, and she was a fire eater. So I met her then. And since then, she's gone right to the top. She's won 2 or 3 Helen Hayes Awards in Washington, which is our equivalent of the Tonys, and just a brilliant stage actress, and just goes from one play to another. She found out that her one line in one episode of House of Cards gave her more email from her friends than the previous 20 years she's been on stage.
My gosh.
So that's quite amazing, I think.
It is. Now, have you gotten reaction from your appearance?
I've had a couple of calls on people who said, wasn't that you in there in the middle of the House of Cards cabinet meetings? And I said, yeah. And I said, there's 3 of them in this season, so keep watching. If there's a cabinet meeting, I'm in there someplace.
Do you have photos of yourself in costume on House of Cards?
No, there are photos taken, of course, of you. In other words, once you've been approved by wardrobe, they take a photograph of you, and that's used as a reference point for the rest of the day's shooting. So you can't change anything; they would notice right away. And that goes right down to the tiny little pin that you get from props in your lapel pin, as well as the specific briefcase that you were given before you walked into the scene. And of course, it's always amazing, I think, to people to see that you're looking at a scene with maybe 5 people in it, and on the outside area, there's maybe 40 to 50 people supporting them. You've got the wardrobe people, you've got the property people, you've got hair and makeup, the cinematographer, the director, the assistant director, just a well-oiled machine of anything that needs to be done. For example, they get one particular scene in which the camera can't go back and far enough because of the wall. They just snap their fingers, and 7 guys rush up and destroy the wall, push it away, and there's room for the camera.
Amazing.
Yeah, it really is. They've got an ideal circumstance up there in Joppa, Maryland, in that they've got every interior scene is right next to the other one, so they can quickly go from one to the other. And all the walls are collapsible, all the ceilings are collapsible. If they want to shoot the camera from overhead, they can do that. And it really makes for an ideal and efficient operation in a TV show.
Now, I've never been involved in a major TV or movie production. What's standard protocol on the set?
Well, almost always you'll spend the morning with what they call the B team, meaning the stars aren't there, their stand-ins are there. And that's to go through every line that's going to be shot, picking all the camera angles, changing all the lighting if necessary. And sometimes this may take a half an hour or an hour just in getting the lighting right, either adding more light or changing the angle of the light or diminishing the amount of light that's on a given scene, particularly on the given feature of attention, which is usually the president and Underwood, of course. So that probably takes about the best part of the morning, and then they'll break for a quick lunch, and then they'll bring in, as they say, the A team, which the stars will come in, and then they'll hold a series of at least 2 or 3 rehearsals of the scene before they actually start shooting. And then they'll start shooting the scene, and as you can tell when watching a movie or a television where there's 2 people speaking, they go back and forth with full face on each. Well, that means that they had to change the entire camera around from behind one person to behind the other person, and they'll do that several times. The average shoot time for both a movie set and a TV set, which would involve from 8 to 10 hours, is you get the equivalent of 3 to 4 minutes that's on screen. So that's roughly 3 to 5 pages of dialogue that you're shooting each day. And that's why it takes so long to complete a movie and complete a TV season.
Now, what about your scene? Was it shot in one take? Did you have to hang around afterwards? How long were you actually there?
Well, each one of the days was a minimum of 8, and one of them ran about 10 hours, which union actors love because it ups your salary when you get into overtime. But I would say that the average would have been 9 hours, and for a scene that will probably be 3 to 4 minutes on the screen.
Tell us how you went from FBI agent to actor.
Well, I always thought there was a little bit of acting involved in being an FBI agent, too, particularly in interrogations, doing the good cop, bad cop, for example, and getting somebody to confess. I got interested in community theater principally because my kids wanted to be involved in it, and I thought it was a great discipline for them in that they're taking orders from a director, a musical director, even a property master, and I enjoyed the feeling of camaraderie in community theater. And I did that for about 5, maybe 6 years, and then I got my first paying job, and then I was hooked. And that involved doing an industrial for the Red Cross. The industrial is a training film, and I auditioned for it, and I got the role, which was one line, and they told me they paid $50 a day. And I thought, that's a lot of money, because I've never been paid before. So I went in, and the total shoot of me on camera was about 10 minutes. They had me say the line about 6 different ways, and I was released after 10 minutes, and I thought, gosh, it's $50 a day, and I was only there 10 minutes, so I'm probably only going to get $1 or something. So when the check came, it was for the full 50. And I called up the Red Cross. I said, "You made a mistake. I was doing that for $50 a day, and I was on there for 10 minutes." And the lady said, "Are you new in this business, honey?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I am." She said, "We pay you $50 a day, whether you're there for 10 minutes or 10 hours." And I said, "Okay." So I did a lot of industrial trading films for various non-union venues, and then ultimately got my SAG and my AFTRA card. And since that time, I've had a number of speaking roles on television. I did a homicide episode. I did an America's Most Wanted one, and I did the Unsolved Mysteries one, which is the one Robert Stack narrates. But of course, you never see him because he's narrating in one city and you're filming it in another.
Have you seen the British version of House of Cards with Ian Richardson, which was done in the 90s?
I haven't, but the significance of it is, I think, amplified here. They recently interviewed a professor of English at the College of William and Mary, who's the expert on Shakespeare, and she said, all the characters in House of Cards are right out of Shakespeare. You've got Macbeth and Lady Macbeth in Frank and Claire Underwood. Frank also shows some of the attributes of Richard III in that he's always turning the audience and letting them in on his murderous jokes. And so she thinks it's very strongly rooted in Shakespearean drama. And she could be right.
Well, I did see it. There's a great deal of disagreement as to whether Ian Richardson is better than Kevin Spacey. The Brits seem to favor Ian, and the Americans are rooting for Kevin Spacey as the best villain.
The only restriction, I guess, on Kevin Spacey in China is that the Chinese, many of whom speak English, are having a little trouble understanding him with his southern drawl. So in some of the Chinese versions of it, they put subtext titles down for Kevin Spacey so the Chinese could follow it.
I was in China and once watched Gone with the Wind, dubbed in Chinese. That was interesting. I don't know if the Chinese people had a southern drawl or not.
This show has really been great, of course, for the actors playing the president and the Secretary of State. I think probably some of your listeners know that Michael Gill is married in real life to Jane Atkinson. He plays the president, she plays the Secretary of State. So I'm sure they really appreciate getting a long-running TV series where they can work together and see each other on a regular basis, which is not true of a lot of the couples of both professional actors.
Now, the trailer for the second season, are you in the trailer for House of Cards?
I think I saw myself for about 1 second in the cabinet meeting.
You sort of flash us, and then.
Yeah, and I could tell which one it was because it's the only cabinet meeting in which we're in shirt sleeves. Most of the time we're dressed to the hilt, of course, coming in with our very impressive wardrobe attire. But one scene was an emergency one, in which the cabinet officials are called in the middle of the night. So they show up looking a little rumpled, no ties, shirts rolled up, etc., some wearing sweaters.
Were you carefully rumpled by wardrobe?
Yes, we were. And they're very careful about taking measures to make sure that you look the same from the beginning of the scene to the end. I mean, after each take, for example, hair and makeup, which would be 3 or 4 ladies, rush out and do any touch-ups. If there's any perspiration that occurred on your forehead that's not supposed to be there, they'll take care of that. They'll brush any hair back that got out of place or something like that.
Well, thank you very much, Jack French, for talking to us about your role in House of Cards. I'm Elaine Viets, and you're listening to the Dead End Job Show.